Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs, the Dr. Contrast Live. Good to have you on board today, and kind of a different subject matter for me. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to kind of delve into this subject matter. I'm doing a lot of research and conversation and looking into things, for example, like military apparatus. I've done aircraft work before and some of the systems, but really nothing in terms of military stealth tanks. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to go back in and take a look at what might happen if we did a next generation stealth tank that's a little bit slicker, smoother, more geometric, if you could kind of look at some of this the surface work we're going to work with here. So I've put together a series of sketches, and really interesting set of circumstances going through the whole process here was, to me, that the driver is really in an unusual situation. I think it's not unusual, but just from a packaging point of view, it just seemed odd to me that in the hull itself, he sits right in the center of the hull underneath the cannon, and I thought, well, that'd be a kind of a nice area to attack, where you kind of isolate that guy, get him into a more comfortable position, maybe with and he uses a periscope to use for sight systems. And in fact, those periscopes are they're called vision blocks, and he has 3 of them to work with. He has front and rear and overhead, and kind of a tough assignment. So as I go through this, to me, it's today's stream is going to be more of a discovery day for me, just looking at some thumbnail sketches and going through the process of trying to find a package. I haven't put scale to it yet, obviously, but just looking at some sketch rendering work, or rapid sketch work, in terms of putting together a really neat looking stealth tank system, or a family thereof, that we could work with. And I think the thing I can really concentrate on was getting a nice simple basket series, or the turret itself, where we actually kind of streamlined a little bit, less bulky, and went to almost like a cab rearward look on some of these sketches as we go through them here today. So let me just walk through these guys very quickly, and we'll just see what we come up with here in time to come throughout the course of the day. So the first pass was just these 2 really quick studies here. Notice this first, let me line these up just a bit better here. When the first series was, when I put the first sketches together, really went into a lot of almost really kind of a very tentative looking approach to just keeping it simple. Cannon up on top with the turret being really almost full balance on the top of the platform. Then again, a little slimmer with maybe a little bit smoother body form here, platform form, then into the turret itself, then center it up. And again, little by little, begin to shift that turret back rearward to get a little more of a stance. So I went back and forth throughout the course of the day here, part of the period of time sketching with this information, to really kind of focus in on what kind of format am I looking for, and it's going to be a neat looking series of sketches to develop for further reference. So let me move along here very quickly. I'll just put these off to one side up here. How's that? And just get them out of the way. This started to kind of open up a little bit more. Notice some of the sketches are getting a little more geometric, a lot more stealth-like, very sheer, crisp looking, a lot of organic form. This one, interesting plan with this thing. This whole body form is kind of thin, and it steps out and gets into some opening areas here as far as camera work for the driver and the gunner and the commander guy to kind of look at here and to take advantage of. Let me just get that part of me. So it's out of here. There you go. So it was interesting that all of a sudden the sketches a little bit more aggressive in terms of, okay, let's kind of find a system that works here. This was an interesting concept. Again, very almost front to rear, almost a little bit of California right to it, and then putting this together. And then this third one, and again, notice that the turret system really going rearward on the actual platform itself, on the bay, its body form. Same with this guy, back to almost center for that location, and then back to almost rearward again. But again, getting a little bit more, for lack of a better term, more adventuresome with some of the shapes, taking advantage of almost being automotive with it. And I think that comes from my background in a way. Some of these tanks might look more car-like than they are tank-like, but I was trying to bring some of that together, some of that same romance from the automobile industry into the tank process, and not to make it look so blocky or just cubistic in a sense, but a little more design character to it. So that's the second plate we worked with here, and let me move down the line here with a series of sketches. There's 2. Then we came into this one. I started moving to like a 3/4 view of this thing. So all of a sudden, things started to really kind of open up for me a little, and started to click just a bit. Taking some adventure, learning how to put this in together. Again, the proportions right, getting the scale right, and getting some character correct is really interesting lesson lesson learned for me. Again, notice getting the the turret rearward, and this would be the actual driver's position itself with the periscopic sight line coming through in the hull itself. And then another view looking at the same form. A little bit of a different body side on this guy, kind of put it all together. So that was another third sketch I kind of cranked on. So I just kept the momentum going and went into this series when I got much more fluid in terms of being almost very organic down below and very crisp up on top with a real long extended boom or cannon system. And again, much softer turret area, but again, some interesting body side work here because it's kind of this, if I were to develop this shape, it's almost very thin through the hull, comes up into this wing type piece, then drops into this upper body platform, and then breaks into almost like a 40 degree or a 30 degree sidewall on this thing. Lamping up front, different series of different ways to look at these things. And then again, this whole area here, and the whole area, the center of the hull kind of drops a bit, and it gives you a little bit more of a low profile. This would be the observation area for the actual the commander or the driver to see, for example, and he sits way back in through here. It's almost like a couch system, where it's almost more like a reclined seating position, and get a little bit more venturesome with some of the, and notice this rear three-quarter gives you a little more of an idea of what the actual form looks like from the rear three-quarter. Bit of a different design, one to the other, but just again, this is exploratory, Dave, just dividing into things like, okay, what if we try this? What if we try that? What are we looking for as far as aesthetic is concerned, to getting this military stealth look in the tanks that we're working with here. Now, switch gears again, went back to it's much more of a stub form, where it's actually this really raises up, gets that turret system up off the ground and really has a lot of height to it, and coming right back in again with the cameras, and then the actual location where the driver would sit roughly in here, almost laying down in a very inclined position to work with. Rear three-quarter, pretty interesting. I mean, getting a little more adventuresome with some of the shapes we're looking at here. So it was really, to me, a lot of fun, because it's a different departure, different process, different look. And you can deal with a lot of interesting things in making sure that this thing still looks faceted, still looks like a tank, and has a very military application look to it. This I thought was an interesting section study, where it came off the actual turret itself, or the basket area, and it came up and vertical into these sidewalls that kind of flared a little bit, and still kept the tank system underneath here. And this would be the camera system here. And what you don't see in this view, again, is the driver sitting back down inside the hull. And I think the reason for elevating that thing, let me go back to this for a moment, elevating the actual turret, was that in the observation and some of the reading about the stealth tank systems, or tanks in general, that when the driver has to be removed or in and out of the vehicle, that cannon has to rotate probably 20 degrees to clear the hatch, to get him up and out of there. So I thought maybe it's interesting to push that whole thing forward and elevate the actual turret itself to give him a little more real estate and a little more comfort to work with as far as entry egress into the tank itself. So let's move along here. Another page of sketches. Went back in and started to take advantage of some of those sketches here. And again, a lot more confident in terms of doing some interesting things here. A little bit stubby here on this. I like to take this guy and stretch it a little bit. But again, that whole idea, having that turret rearward and very, very crisp body forms on the actual platform itself. 1, 2, and 3. This gets a little bit better. It starts to stretch a little bit more. I think it has a more comfort to it. Again, elevating that whole idea of getting that turret assembly full rearward and a little more elevated. And then this would be the area here, for example, where that driver would actually sit. He's probably in an inclined position, really low profile up front and in the center of the hull. This one was a bit of a departure, where the actual driver would be much further rearward. Again, very crisp. This whole area here is all open. I don't know if that's going to function or not. I don't think it would in this case, but just again, looking at what ifs, possibilities of putting some neat sketches together, and also kind of deriving at a formula for getting a really neat looking stealth system. Is it much more faceted? Is it a combination of both? Is it organic in some areas and stealthy in another area? So this is where we are here. There's another page of sketches. Again, as I said at the beginning of the stream, this is for me a very, very interesting day. It's almost discovery day, exploring certain things and kind of getting a feel for or an understanding of the character of what we're trying to achieve with this stealth tank system. So let's move along here. Another set of sketches. Now I'm starting to get a little bit bolder with some of these guys. I've noticed the scales coming a little bit, getting a lot more a lot more adventuresome. I think there's some interesting things happening in these forms. For example, notice again that driver's cockpit area is elevated and at the center of the hull, but at the same time gives it a little more flexibility as far as entry egress above the cannon itself, and getting a lot of facet work from rear cannon work, or rear cannon not in this one, but again, here's a combination I thought was interesting too, where we take advantage of this very organic body form, and then again this very organic turret system. But is it still stealthy in some areas? Yeah, I think the combination of the two might be intriguing. It's a bit of a departure again, getting this whole notice all this steps outboard, and then this area steps rearward or inboard. Gives you a little bit of a stance change, and it's interesting to see what that takes place just from the conceptual point of view of getting on these like the cells. It says that does this fuel electronic storage work? Is this a raking system up front, for example, battering and ramming and so forth, and things under attack mode? Again, this to me was a comfortable page and starting to get the scale right. And if I were to put scale to this, I'd say the human being would probably stand about right at their hair, about that height area. Now I'll go back into that later on in some of the sketches as we go through this today. Next series of sketches coming in from the rear 3/4. Again, looking at a very almost wing type. This is a very interesting structure. It's almost wing type turret on this thing. And then again, still stealthy, but the rear gunner. Very forward cannon, a little bit of an open area here, but again, the actual commander is sitting right back in this area here, so he's actually good sight lines coming through the actual piece itself. Notice a very faceted looking approach to this thing here, so very, very faceted and much crisper. Again, just roaming through some things and getting some ideas down and putting together some very interesting kind. Again, that's how thin this whole turret thing is, and it still is elevated quite a bit. This would be the same canopy version that this guy has here, so they're both related. But again, interesting, just getting the stance down. I think getting guttier with it, and I felt more confident as I went from sketch to sketch to sketch, which is naturally a good thing to go through here. So let's go back here. Let's go back to the next set here. Then I kind of slowed down a little bit and said, no, why don't we do a little study work here on some of these turrets assemblies? What do they look like? What do we start to do in terms of putting together maybe different pieces of how to. This is a little partial rear 3/4 where the actual canopy and the turret sits on the top of the form. This will be the platform down here, and then the canopy is up, the turret's up on top of that. A little bit of a front 3/4 detail of a camera system, cannon itself, and as this thing just kind of floats back in this very slim looking turret assembly up on top here. Then I just kind of switch gears and said, oh, what do we do a little bit of an organic, almost like a platypus here. We've got a nice round form, comes into a very crisp underbelly, and it kind of sits in this nestled area in the, it's trying to show you a little bit of the rear quarter area of the tank flank where it sits in and the actual process itself. So this has an interesting alternative to it. I don't know if it's quite stealth-like, but it has another departure, maybe a combination of both organic and stealth, to see if that would function well. And again, moving along here, another series of sketches, just on this guy, just doing some additional little studies on just the actual turret itself. Just a plan view look at this thing, forward tank here, rear tank back here. And again, notice the camera system mounted up to one side, but it gives you a bit of a swing system all the way through. That probably be better suited up on top, or else up in this area here for assembly or vision purposes. But again, showing a little bit of the actual platform back here in the area. And again, a little bit of an overhead shot here, putting the camera up on top, and then the actual turret system, the gun cannon system here. And again, still very pivotable. And then this little platform area here comes up and steps into that's where this is actually that tank platform itself. So I really went through a lot of investigative sketches here to kind of get used to this whole concept of doing a tank system, especially in the stealth realm. It's very interesting and could be very dramatic looking. Not so interested at this stage of the game getting the color or scaled. It's just looking for a theme to kind of put together pieces. So from that sketch, let me just move here, went on to some of these guys where I started looking at, all right, what do we do here? Pardon me a moment, let's get these sketches organized here, back in the right sequence. What if we started looking at this thing from the point of view of, again, notice that turrets have a full rearward, much more static platform, a little bit of an offset, tread front, tread rear, some storage systems in here, electronics or fuel systems or whatever might need to be contained. Then looking very interesting front end assembly here, where actually this is center line here, pardon me, camera up on top, camera to camera. The turret's actually elevated. This area here would be located as a driver's window inside the hull. And again, very faceted, almost Lamborghini-like. And I think that's kind of a fun-looking thing to do here. But if we went back and looked at this beauty, maybe we'd take a look at this guy. Let's do a little elevation study here. See what we come up with. Let's kind of take this thing to the ground line. Get the ground. A little bit of clearance to it. Let's pick up that same basic faceted theme here. But in this case, let's bring this downhill here. Let's pick it uphill. And repeat that same process. So we are there. Let's get this thing to kind of read here. Well, there's a variation here, just a little, again, you look at the side view of this thing, a little more dramatic with it, stretching it just a bit more than we did in the initial study up on top here. And let's take a minute here and see what happens if we look at this thing from, again, a front elevation. And again, the really concern for me is this whole, when I really looked into this whole process about what happens when you get this thing put together, what's amazing to me is that driver, the commander, sits right in the middle of the hull, almost in a reclined position. So, but you look at some of the sketches and think, geez, how in the world do you get in and out of this thing? And was it comfortable? So, and I think he needs to have a digital display. He does have, in the turret basket itself, he has a digital display system. It's a very minimal, but I think it'd be kind of nice if you're laying back like that to really have a nice, big, long, thin-looking approach so you can see a whole panorama as you're looking and driving through the processor. So let's do this. Let's kind of go back and see if we can't get some kind of a nice, intriguing plan form here. Let's work a little front elevation here. On the ground. Now, let's see what happens here. Take a moment here and just check my, pardon me, my proportions. See what we're doing here. So let's see what this guy looks like here. Pretty good. Not bad. Not bad at all. Proportionally, it looks pretty good. So we get this guy put together here. Let's do a little front elevation. Let's see what happens if we really elevate this thing, but have some fun with this thing. What if we did this? that whole thing, what if that turret was offset and asymmetrical like that? That kind of that interesting little approach, wouldn't it? I mean, see what happens here. We're gonna carry this on a little further. Again, cameras. Two of them there. The actual gun itself, the actual base area here. And another camera, another camera. This would be the commander's area here, sitting inside the hull. Back of the tank, the rear end here, portion of it, just drive that through. Maybe that comes along here as the deck is right there. Move those up a little bit. It comes right back and creates this very strong rear kick area here. Ghost lighting in here. There it is. It's a symmetrical look at this thing coming from that right at the front end. Kind of an intriguing approach to it, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe it's just a bit on the round. So let's try this. Let's go back and do another elevation, front elevation here. Here we go, another little study here. Hey, Demetrius, here, how it looks like it has a race car feel. Where you can all move fast through the terrain. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, trying to get a, excuse me here, Demetrius. Yeah, I'm trying to get a real good character, a feel for a highly expressive looking system here. These are front elevation studies. I don't know if you saw these or not, but I went back to this. It started it right here. Going through some elevation and into a front view and then back to a side view, etc. It does have a low center of gravity, very low center of gravity, but I also try to take a look at maybe pushing the, oh, excuse me, pushing the cockpit off the one side and also turret off the one side and give this the driver's component here, the actual viewing window of the commander, a little more of a sight pattern to see what's coming up. And so it's interesting, very interesting concept here in terms of getting this tank. Very low profile below, very high tail on this thing. Still doesn't restrict the actual firing system because this all disappears in behind the actual turret itself. So really interesting things here. So, hey, by the way, good to have you on board, Demetrius. How are you doing? Pretty well? Hanging in there? That's good stuff, man. Thank you for joining me here today. A bit of a new departure for me, as I said in the very beginning of the stream. I'll take a moment here to bring up the speed. I really want to get into a lot of different military. I've done aircraft. I've done all types of things, military aircraft, passenger aircraft, etc. But tanks to me are always intriguing. The more I read about some of the stealth systems going on out there, how simple and clean and how low profile they were. Very interesting thing for me to kind of move into. So I thought I'd put together. I don't know if you saw did you see the first few minutes of the sketch? Tell me catch up with your story. Yeah, very good. I'll real quick review here. I started out like this, very quickly here, Demetrius. Started out doing some sketches here. For example, some really quick elevations on these guys. I'll go through them very quickly here. Again, looking for theme or character, personalization, for example. And all of a sudden started click on something here, actually moving the turret rearward. That was helpful. Then coming to a little front three-quarter study, getting a little more aggressive with some of the shapes we're dealing with here. Interesting things to work with, offsetting it a little bit with some baggage work and some storage systems. Another approach, taking it almost like a two cantilever boom system here, and then the actual turret going rearward, a very long-range gun, cannon up on top there. Then went back to this, a little bit of a stubby approach here, but this is where I started to look at getting this elevation of the turret area in place here. Kind of interesting how I to lift it up a bit, and then again went back to a three-quarter rear, and then into an elevation. This started to take on some character here, bring that whole thing rearward, giving a real strong stance to it. And again, very crisp in some areas, and again, getting that turret system and that gun elevated above the commander's area here. I went back to a couple of elevation studies again, here and here, not bad. And this little look here, again, front three-quarters, this is all hollow up front where the actual pilot's sitting back in through here in this area. So that's where we are there. And then I really started to click on some things here, I think. With this approach, all of a sudden notice the commander's little turret area, this little window box here is his area. And then come right back into this, and all of a sudden some real character, and a combination of two. I thought, well, not try a little bit of combination of organic and very sheer together with it. So looking at those kind of things to deal with. So this page started really kind of click a little bit for me as far as theme goes. Notice every one of them, that turret's rearward, where I really want to get that thing back far on the platform, and then letting the driver, the commander's area, be this little separate turret up front to work with here. And rear three-quarter. Now I'm starting to get some real interesting shape here. I'm a little more confident in terms of what the forms are starting to do, and looking like a very good solid piece to work with and going through the whole process here. So then I moved on to this and I started doing some little turret studies about what does it look like. I want more stealth, a very thin, low profile. Is there a combination, for example, this one much more stealth, the cannon system coming out here, cannon system here. And then going back and putting it in a position a little bit, showing what this thing might look like on the actual platform itself. Then doing a little detail of a combination of both organic and stealth itself. And again, with the side skirts of the tank coming through on top of that guy. So just exploring a lot of different things here today to kind of get a feel for a characterization of what I want to accomplish in this tank system. Then again, went back into some canopy studies, or probably turret studies, looking at cannon area here, camera systems, rear gun, platform area, plan view, what that might look like in terms of plan view, very thin, stealthy, like with a very wide platform beneath it. Then another little detail up on top here. This one is kind of interesting, where the camera might be better suited off the one side or the other. But just the idea of getting the ideas, the concepts down about what approach we're going to take. And then as you've seen here, the last one I just finished up here, pardon me as I shuffle these sketches and get them organized. were these two. I went back into this guy and I got that one started, and this put them side by side. So then I went from elevation into a form site, and I got a lot wider. I think this has got a lot of character to it, a lot wider in terms of putting guttiness to it. And interesting, especially with the offset, is interesting, I think, too. So maybe we'll kind of work on that. And again, you get a lot more geometric underneath this. So I'm not so sure this is the approach I'd like to take here. This has much more character to it in terms of being able to really be a bit of an offset and giving some clearance to the actual commander itself. And again, looking at the bucket system inside that bucket, it's hard to believe there are 3 people inside it, some 4-man crew basically, to get inside this thing to work with these beauties. And it's just amazing how, let's see, that's it. And the basket itself, the commander sits right rear, and the loader, the guy who takes care of munitions, he sits in the left rear, and then the actual gunner is in the right front. So all these guys are all working in harmony, and the commander is up front in the actual hull, center hull area of the actual tank itself. So let me just kind of go back here and maybe put a little elevation slide together here, and we'll see what we got here. A little bit of ground line, lift. Let's get that shape to kind of work with us hard. Let's get this thing to a little bit more of a wedge. Really taper it off. And let's keep that pretty square of the roll back here. Let's kind of kick this down here too. Let's get this down to ground. Let's bring this down here. Let's take that line right through. Let's see what happens if we kick this up. Shifting as we go. Again, commander's pod sitting up front. Camera location there. Elevated turret. Body section. Really kind of knock that thing right off and go a little more slope to this thing. Here we are, another little elevation study here. Just looking at maybe different ways to look at this thing from the point of view of just getting a good characterization down about certain things, like, for example, this combination. We actually take a look at maybe an elevation and just some front elevations, some really dramatic looking. I mean, this is, to me, this is an intriguing approach. I don't know how functional it might be, but there's something about that wide body, very nice, stealthy-like floating piece up on top. Interesting thing, a really interesting pursuit, I think. A little bit clumsy through here, but nonetheless, something began to happen. I think this is much more dramatic than this guy is. It's got a high tail in this thing, which is still functional. This all disappears behind the actual turret itself. Then it started here, actually. Let's put this together here. If I can get them all lined up. Let's see, this and this and this. I think we can get them all put together here. Just a gallery of just thinking sketches here. And Demetrius, if you're still there, any favorites at all? I mean, what you've seen thus far, there's a lot of variation on theme here. Let's see, we kind of look at what we've got. I mean, I've started out very loosely, almost very tentative, because I wasn't quite sure where the proportions are going to go. But I am top left. Oh yeah, this guy here. You like that approach? And yeah, if the top left is intriguing, do you think this has some merit here? This is offset down below. I mean, there's something really spooky about this whole process here. We actually take the turret, the actual basket, and shift it off center. Still won't and disturb the balance, but I think that's a lot. If I took this approach and put that lower on it, might be a bit. I might try that over the next few days or so before we get together back on Thursday. But this has, yeah, you're right. I think I really want to take a departure as far as stealth is concerned and get rid of the tank stigma of being heavy, bulky, uninteresting, but had a lot of drama to it. And that's some really character to some of the sketches that we've done here. So I think the last few studies we've done here, especially when you get back into things like, let me dig these back out just for a moment here. When you get into things like that, all of a sudden they start to take on a different personality. They look really machine-like. And again, this plate was an interesting series too, where it started to open things up a little bit. They looked a lot more tank-like and very mysterious looking. The offset looks powerful. Yeah, I think you're right, Demetrius. This is back to this one. That offset looks really powerful. So I might spend some time between now and Thursday going through a nice series of sketches to get this thing looking good in a perspective study, front, rear, three-quarter, and see what we come up with. But I think these two really started to open up the door for me, and especially this set here. This started to really kind of, this opened up a bit, and then this really started to blow it wide open as far as I can take more chances on it, a lot more adventuresome, much more theoretical, much more space-like, as opposed to being just quote tank. So let's get those guys out of the way, and we'll kind of wrap it up here with this presentation today. With a whole lot of, I think, interesting things to deal with here. So I think I've kind of decided on the fact, I'm in your camp, Demetrius. I think this whole idea of having this offset turret or the basket is really a unique approach. And getting this real low profile platform to work would be really intriguing. So I'm going to see if I can do a little bit of investigating work on this guy. And come back to this approach here. That's kind of an interesting, really kind of a gutty looking form here. So really appreciate the input, Demetrius, and I'm glad you joined us today. Hope you're doing very, very well. Always good to have you on board, and we'll have to stay in touch here. And again, I hope your life and you and your family are doing well down there in Florida, and you're still staying very busy. Obviously, that's great. Any other closing commentary here, Demetrius, before we kind of wrap it up here? As I said at the beginning of the stream, this is today a new subject matter for me. Tank systems, military systems such as this. I did a little time looking at some reading and so forth, who was doing what, where the locations were, and really kind of opened up the door for me. And the number one thrust in these sketches was to find an area that gave that commander a lot more visibility and less of an intrusive approach sitting in the middle of that hull. And again, knowing full well that he sits back in the thing, it's almost like an inclined seat, even more difficult. So maybe I'll do a little exploratory stuff between now and Thursday where we actually take advantage of what it might look like on the inside with this big panoramic screen, this video screen. They use now like a digital display system called Vision Blocks, and actually using periscopes. I don't see why they can't use live camera systems and really work with that as far as the details concerned. That can be a lot of fun. So things to work with, things to look at here. And yeah, I wonder if the offset to the right might look like, or are you doing just wondering if the offset to the right might look, or are you going to stay to the left? I think I'll stay more to the left. I think, what do you think as far as location. I think the location to the left looks pretty bold to me. I think it might be a bit too much offset. We could shift it back towards center a little bit, but not by much. I want to give enough clearance to this commander area with the gunner on top of that thing, so he doesn't have to be in the way all the time. So what do you think? Just no, that's good. That's a good question, Demetrius. I think it's a good point. We could try it both ways. We'll try one with this configuration center up, and one with the right to the left, and see what comes up with, and just making some really good advancement in where the location of that basket is. So really appreciate the time, Demetrius, and thanks so much for your input. It's always very helpful to have another set of eyeballs on it saying, yeah, that's good, no, that's not good. Let's try this or that. But I think the whole idea here for me today was to understand and to see what happens within these military systems and what happens to commander and the commanding approach to just getting proportion changes, a lot more evil looking, a lot more sinister looking from the point of view of being stealthy. They should look very, and if you can imagine these guys done look like a military gunmetal gray or black with some accent work, it can be really kind of intimidating looking, very evil looking. So we might try some sketches on Thursday on black Kansan just to see what this stuff might look like here. So anyway, gang, much appreciated, Demetrius. Terrific to have you on board, and I hope you and your family are well. Thanks again for taking the time here today. And please take a moment and visit my website at jim@drcontrast.com. Then you'll see some things there. My YouTube information is there. Instagram information is there. Some of the things I'm doing on Twitch has all been recorded there. And also YouTube, it's great. So every time I'm done with the stream, I load it up onto YouTube and keep building the library. So it's been a lot of fun there. Let me just do this real quickly. Where did I start with? That's this one. Yeah, let me just do a second here. But while I'm waiting here, please, if there's anything I can work with you on or help you with along the way, Demetrius, pass the word along. And also, if you have anything you want me to work on or help to show you, terrific, just interesting. If I could help you anyway, just drop me a note at my on my email at jim@drcontrast.com. Look forward to hearing from you and to take advantage of some things we can work with you on. Be great. Let me just sign these guys and get them out of the way. So that's that one done. Let's sign this guy here. And last but not least, the last one we just did, I'll add to this as we go here throughout the week and come back and look at some more exploratory work here. So that's where we are here today, gang. And again, so good to have you on board. Hope all is well and you stay very healthy. Take care of yourself, and above all else, let's take a look at this thing one more time, maybe on Thursday, to kind of maybe pin some things down and maybe orchestrate some things a little bit more clearly for us to kind of view. Let me get these in a bit here. There you are. And there it is. And we'll bring this guy down just a touch. So there's the actual Trioka, the final three here, looking at some of the sketches we worked on today. And we'll build upon this. I think this offset to the left could be really a lot of fun. So take care, gang. All the very best. And as I always sign off with, please, again, visit my website, jim@drcontrast, that's email address, rather, jim@drcontrast.com, and drcontrast.com is a website. Hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for joining me here today. And always remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. All the best. We'll see you on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Thanks. Bye-bye.